Welcome to World Business. Now, in a world where many economies are still finding their feet in the post-COVID era, Azerbaijan is racing ahead. The latest forecast from the World Travel and Tourism Council suggests the country's tourism sector is on course for a breakout year in 2025, with a projected contribution of just over $6 billion to the national economy and job support nearing 500,000. Well, it's a story of domestic strength and international momentum. Spending by overseas travellers is forecast to fully recover, reaching $3.2 billion, while local tourism is also surging, hitting a record $2.2 billion. And the horizon is even brighter. WTTC's Vision 2035 puts Azerbaijan on the map as a rising regional power in tourism, with nearly $10 billion in future economic impact and an estimated 200,000 new jobs. But what's driving this upturn? Is it policy, perception, or something else entirely? Well, to help us unpack this trend and understand the global outlook, I'm delighted to say we're joined now by Julia Simpson, President and CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council, who's joining us from London. Julia, really great to see you. Thanks for being on the show. Let's start then with this headline, if you like. What makes Azerbaijan stand out right now on the global tourism map?
Well, it's wonderful news for Azerbaijan. I'm speaking from London and the World Travel and Tourism Council. And as your intro said, we analyse the impact of travel and tourism to countries around the world. It's great news for Azerbaijan. As you're hearing, this year is going to break all records. We are forecasting a growth, a contribution to your economy of about 10.3 billion manat. And that's 10% of all jobs in Azerbaijan. So what is really the secret ingredient? Well, I think Azerbaijan has really done a great job of promoting itself overseas. We have Florian Schmidt, who leads up the Azerbaijan Tourist Board. He's out there around the world. I meet him all the time. And I had the great pleasure of being in Azerbaijan, in Baku myself, and seeing what an incredible country Azerbaijan is.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I've had the pleasure of speaking to you before at COP and on other occasions, also interviewed Florian many times. And there's a genuine enthusiasm for what's happening in this country, not just here, as you say, but in very many countries around the world. And let's talk about domestic tourism, because that is also booming. What do you think the key drivers are there?
Well, when I went around Baku, what I was delighted to see was there was a really healthy mix between international visitors, who will be spending about 5.5 billion manat this year, and domestic, local people really enjoying themselves, coming to Baku from other parts of Azerbaijan, and their spending is going to be representing about 3.8 billion manat. So it's actually very important to have that balance. In some countries where you get a bit of a dislocation between the two, sometimes you can find local people, they sort of feel that there are a lot of people in their country and they're not quite sure why. In this case, it really is a shared celebration of what Azerbaijan is and they share it on an equal basis with all the international visitors. And international visitors clearly bring in international currency, which is effectively an export for Azerbaijan.
And Julia, I mentioned our conversation at COP29 here in Baku. Talking more about sustainability, what role does that play, do you think, in shaping the sector's growth?
Well, that's one of the great things that you're doing in Azerbaijan. You're really growing your sector sustainably. It's a bit of a catch-all phrase. What does it really mean? Well, first of all, you're looking at using renewable energies, renewable electricity. ensuring that the actual carbon footprint of the sector is kept to its lowest possible amount. But also it means about protecting your culture, your heritage, and travel and tourism, by giving that important injection of cash into the economy, means that some of the beautiful sites, medieval sites that we're seeing in Baku, can be preserved for future generations. And finally, it means it's our kind of social contract, if you like. Can travel and tourism really give good quality jobs to local people? And yes, they can. And the great thing about travel and tourism is you can enter your career in quite a low job, but you can end up becoming a CEO. The CEO of Hilton began by cleaning hotel bedrooms. So, everything is possible in our sector.
And more widely, the sector internationally has been through a tough few years. We've had COVID, climate change, conflict all over the world affecting supply chains, people's propensity to travel. But is there a sense that we're sort of entering into almost an international travel renaissance now? Are you seeing this rebound effect across other countries as well?
Oh, it's so interesting. People ask me this question, are Trump's tariffs affecting travel? And what we're seeing at the moment, while when it first happened, there was a bit of intake of breath, most definitely. But when we look at bookings now around the world, they are very, very strong. The great thing about travel and tourism is it's a super resilient industry. And of course, there are tragic wars going around the world. And, first and foremost, we always think of the poor people who are caught up in these terrible situations. But having said that, when it comes to travel and tourism, the tourist is quite sensible, and they will still go on holiday, but mostly the impact around war zones is really just concentrated around that zone. So we're a very resilient sector. People want to travel, and the world is on the move. We have a growing global population. People from India are traveling more, people from China are traveling more, Asia Pac's traveling a lot, and as is the Middle East. So we definitely can see that is why Azerbaijan is perfectly positioned, both geographically and in terms of its business model around sustainability, to really be a leader of the pack this year.
And Julia, obviously these exciting results are specific to Azerbaijan, but also we know the region, the wider region itself, seems to be attracting more attention from China, from Europe, from America, India, many other countries. Countries like Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, that have really fascinating stories to tell, interesting places to visit. What's your sense of how the region now is viewed further afield in some of the big countries in the world?
It's a really interesting story because, you could call them the stars, so to speak, from a European point of view. And for many, many years, a lot of the whole region remained a bit of a mystery, actually, to the rest of the world. But more and more, we are seeing that people are really throwing a spotlight on the region, and people want to come and visit the whole of the area. And the great thing about your region is that there are a lot of undiscovered natural beauty spots, architecture, history, culture. And one of the big tendencies that we are seeing now in travel and tourism is people want new experiences. They want to go to places where they've never been before. And that hunger and that appetite, I think, is only going to be accelerated by AI, because people now literally at the touch of a button with the super apps, that's going to say, tell me to go somewhere new, somewhere exciting. I love mountains, I love architecture. And you're going to be finding that by using social media, the whole region is going to be a lot more on the map.
Yeah, that's clearly a big factor which is contributing to this surge in demand, isn't it, Julia? But I mean, it's still not a completely easy sector to operate in. We've still got geopolitical challenges that can affect the market. With that in mind, what are the challenges that it's critical for the sector to get right over the next 12 months?
Well, the very first thing is make sure you've got a simple visa policy, because where visa policies are complex, or difficult, it puts people off. And if you're already not such a well-known destination, that's number one. Number two, do what Azerbaijan Tourism Board is doing really well. Get your story out there, get the narrative out there. We also need infrastructure, good airline connectivity and roads. And certainly when I went to Baku, I was astounded at how modern a city it is. It really is the ancient sitting teeth by jowl, next to each other, with the very, very modern. So it really is making sure that all those basics are in place. And also security. When travellers are going to a place they're not quite sure about, they really want to know that they're going to be safe and secure. And certainly in Azerbaijan, that is very, very much the case. I received one of the warmest welcomes. And when I was at COP, I was astounded to see that, the COP where Azerbaijan celebrated the biggest sustainability summit in the world, they did it in the most sustainable way that has ever been done. So the great thing about Azerbaijan is you just don't talk the talk, you walk the talk as well.
And Julia, Vision 2035, many different elements to it. One of the projections in it is for this major job creation. Got the figures in front of me here, 200,000 new jobs. These are very, very big numbers. Why do you feel that forecast is realistic?
I think it's realistic because we work with Oxford Economics, we have done for 30 years, and their forecasts are very, very good. Obviously, when you have a forecast for the next 10 years, anything can happen. But we do know that travel and tourism is growing as an industry at almost double the rate of global GDP. So we know it's a sector that's growing. The thing is, who is going to get that growth? And Azerbaijan is very, very well place to do it. The other reason why those new jobs are so critical for Azerbaijan is AI does mean that people in many industries, not just travel and tourism, but will be facing job reductions. And the great thing about our sector is a lot of the jobs have to be done in person. And if you've got a young population, then you need to be fostering an economy and an industry that puts jobs for young people first. So I am very, very comfortable and very confident that Azerbaijan is going to meet its 10-year goals.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's something we've discussed on this show certainly before, that the rise of AI, if anything, means that ability, those skills, those people-to-people skills, if anything, are going to continue to be in demand because those are the things that help create that great experience with customers. Just talking about authenticity and making sure that those experiences that travellers receive are genuinely part of the heritage of that country. How do tourist boards, governments get the right balance between giving people access to historical experiences, locations, and also making sure that they commercialise the offer?
I completely agree. Authenticity is one of the major drivers now in travel and tourism. People in the old days, they wanted to travel, but they wanted almost to have the comforts of home and feel sort of safe and secure. And what that actually meant is it sort of dulled a little bit some of the authentic cultural experiences that people could have relied on. But now people know, they're very comfortable with what an airline trip's going to be. They know what to expect from a hotel, and what they really want to do is immerse themselves in the culture. And the thing is, it's about balance. Shopping, for example, is one of the major economic drivers when it comes to travel and tourism. The numbers show that most people, when they travel, will shop. So the thing is, they might want some of the top luxury brands, but we all know when we travel, we want to also take a piece of Azerbaijan home with us. And the great thing about that is to do that in a high quality way. So it's not sort of cheap knickknacks, but really high quality products from Azerbaijan that people can be proud to take home. So you have to have these two economies working next to each other to ensure that the tourist has a little bit of both. And then the other thing to do is to look at different types of tourism. You know, there are enormous, for example, cycling events around the world. We want to make sure that Azerbaijan can attract some of these sporting events, and that type of tourist will be slightly different from the tourist that comes to look at some of the old architecture and modern architecture that you have in Baku. So it's really making sure that you have quality products. And the other reason that's important is that protects some of the old artisan crafts and historical methods of making things that otherwise could have disappeared. And you will also find your domestic travellers are looking for that as well. So it's really important to have high quality, authentic products in the market.
And just thinking about those cities, those destinations that perhaps look to Baku as a blueprint for success, if you like, what are the things that Azerbaijan as a country has done well that you would recommend other destinations who perhaps are a bit earlier on this journey might adopt?
Well, first and foremost, definitely make sure that your country feels safe and welcomes people genuinely with all the processes, but that, you know, there is a genuine belief that travel and tourism will be good for your people and good for your country. You need to get that buy-in, and that vision has to come from the top. It has to have really strong political leadership, which is what you have in Azerbaijan. We're all looking now aghast towards Saudi Arabia, known as a enormous energy oil state. And there it is, investing $800 billion with the Crown Prince himself talking about the importance of travel and tourism. And that filters all the way down. So you need political leadership, which you've got in Azerbaijan. And then you really need great storytelling. You need people who are sitting around the world who might not even know where Azerbaijan is to really hear stories. Now, that kind of marketing takes brains, and it also takes some economic investment, but at the end of the day, it's really worth it with what it delivers, because the importance of getting economically of getting visitors is you are getting foreign currency into your system, and you never know where your economy is at any point in time, and often that money, whether it's American visitors or visitors from the Middle East, wherever it's coming from, or from India or from China, can be a really, really important ballast to your own national economy.
Julia, it's always great to hear your analysis. Thank you very much for joining us from London.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
Azerbaijan's rise in the travel economy isn't just a national milestone, it's part of a broader global shift in how tourism drives jobs, growth and innovation. Well, as spending rebounds and confidence returns, the sector is set to play a defining role in the years ahead. Well, now let's take a look at the latest crypto news that came out this week.
From Donald Trump's big dinner to GameStop's massive Bitcoin buy-up, this is Crypto Weekly. Buyers of President Donald Trump's meme coin met for an exclusive dinner at his private country club. According to data, investors spent an estimated $148 million on the cryptocurrency to secure their seats at the dinner. Blockchain analysis showed more than half of the 220 holders who attended the black tie event were likely based outside the US. The top holders of the coin got a private VIP reception with Trump, while the four largest investors also received a limited edition Trump Tourbillon watch that sells for $100,000. Not everyone was happy with Trump's dinner party. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren argued he was using the presidency to enrich himself.
Donald Trump's dinner is an orgy of corruption. That's what this is all about. We are here today to talk about exactly one topic: corruption. Corruption in its ugliest form.
But US Vice President J.D. Vance doubled down on the administration's support for crypto. He told attendees of the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas that Trump's team is working to roll back regulations from the previous administration.
Our administration, we prioritize eliminating the rules, the red tape, and the lawfare that we saw aimed at crypto by our predecessors. We're ending the weaponization of federal regulations against this community.
And GameStop announced it's gone big on crypto as it tries to boost investor interest. The struggling video game retailer said it has bought Bitcoin worth about $513 million. GameStop was at the centre of a meme stock frenzy 4 years ago. But the firm has struggled to turn around its mainstay business of selling video games through brick and mortar stores in the digital age.
Well, that is all we have time for on this edition. Please do stay in touch with all the latest business news on anews.tv and, of course, across our social media channels. And join me again next week for more World Business.